A two-week meeting of Catholic bishops is halfway over, and according to some of the documentation, Catholic bishops have shown new openness towards gays and civil unions as they met at the Vatican. Joining us now to discuss all that is the co-host of Close Encounter, Lisa Jandovitz, and senior editor at The Catholic Thing, Brad Miner. Let me start with you, Brad. There's a lot of discussion in the media. I saw CNN earlier today had the Vatican with this huge rainbow flag, almost engulfing it and covering it all up as they did the story. What is the story at this point?
Well, we're halfway through. This document that was released yesterday is a summary of the conversations that went on. And in those conversations, a lot of things were said. A lot of things were not so much proposed by the bishops as discussed by them. But I don't really think that anything that was said yesterday, although there was some emphasis on the gay lifestyle as opposed to the homosexual person, I don't see anything coming out of this meeting that's actually going to change the doctrine. I have with me today this little booklet that was issued back in 1986, essentially written by then Cardinal Ratzinger, that outlines the natural law basis of Catholic teaching, which is to say, love the homosexual, but there is no condoning homosexual practice.
What about it, Lisa?
Right, but nothing like this has actually ever been said before in terms of gay people and their relationships. And by that I mean with what has been discussed just the other day in saying that these relationships through mutual aid can provide such support in the lives of partners. And that really is not getting into anything in terms of homosexual acts, but it's acknowledging that as human beings, these are people that have relationships, and these relationships can often be very beneficial to them. And I think, and I know Brad had mentioned that this is not necessarily something that's changing church teachings or doctrine, but maybe it's more to change or change the tone of pastoral approach, and anything that could make anyone, and particularly gay people who have not always felt welcome in the church, feel a more loving and welcome church, I think can only be beneficial for not just for them, but for the church as a whole.
And Brad, the words used are that gays had gifts and qualities to offer. Does this also run the risk of turning a lot of people off and angering a lot of true conservatives within the church?
At the website yesterday, my colleague Robert Royal wrote a piece about the synod, and the comments were on the verge of being, that is to say reader comments, on the verge of being truly calling for a separation, a kind of schism. I think the messaging is the problem. The Vatican has long had messaging problems. And if it's not changing doctrine, then it has to explain why it is it can praise a homosexual union, much like the Cardinal Archbishop of New York has to explain how he can be Grand Marshal of a parade that accepts marchers who are marching as homosexuals. That is to say, not as individuals who happen to be Catholic or Irish. In this case, the group is not a particularly Catholic or an Irish group, but they're marching to represent the gay lifestyle, to celebrate it. And that's what the church can't do.
And Lisa, we could argue with words, and we've yet to see the final documents, of course, and there's another week to go. But I don't think anybody would, although the media hopes it will, they always hope against hope, and they'll be satisfied with nothing short of the Pope welcoming in marriage for priests and gay marriage and acceptance of homosexuals into the church, as homosexuals, etc. But none of that's going to happen. Nothing is going to change when it comes to church doctrine, correct?
Right. I don't believe so, and none of that has been discussed. Nothing in terms of gay marriage had been discussed, but just the very nature, and Father James Martin had said it, and John Thavis, who is a Vatican expert, had said that this kind of talk, this kind of tone in terms of looking at gay people and taking them where they are and loving them and talking about their qualities and their gifts, and is the church actually welcoming to them? And that's the question, that are we doing what we can to make them feel that way, because acceptance has not always been how they have felt as part of the church. And I think that's the issue, and that issue I think really goes towards a pastoral approach as opposed to doctrine and changing anything in terms
Right.
about marriage and so forth.
All right, Brad, homosexuality will still be considered, though, a sin, correct?
Yes. I think inevitably it will be. Again, it always has been. I see nothing that has changed that could possibly affect the doctrine itself. Persons, not practice. We love persons, but we do not respect or accept the homosexual
I'm
lifestyle.
not Catholic, but I mean, I've always heard, you know, love the sinner, hate the sin, that kind
Yes,
of thing.
that's essentially it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to come back with more of this wonderful panel, and we have a very interesting subject to discuss on part 2 as well. Don't go away, don't miss it.